everybody, welcome to the Uncommon Comedy Podcast. I am your host, Brian Apprille. Uncommon Comedy Podcasts are available on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, on Spotify, and you can watch us on Facebook and on YouTube, and you can see us at Uncommon Comedy on Facebook, on Instagram at Uncommon Comedy Tour, and on YouTube at Uncommon Comedy Podcast. My guest today is actually one of the members of the Uncommon Comedy Tour that was supposed to be out and around performing, but she is a fantastic comedian, performs all over the country. Love having her as part of the show, and I'm excited to get to talk to her a little bit today. So please welcome the very funny Lisa Gilbert. Lisa!
Hello!
How are ya?
Good.
Yay! So good to have you here. You're like one of the real Uncommon Comedy Tour people. So
I know. I've been waiting.
You've been waiting so long. So now we figure we get you in, get you showcased to everybody, and you can follow Lisa at on Facebook and Instagram at Lisa Gilbert Comedy, and on Twitter at Lisa G Comedy. So Lisa, one of the things I love about working with you, and I love about your comedy, is you have this really likable stage persona, even though it's kind of like this sarcastic, sassy mom thing. It's just really funny. It comes across as like you don't care, but you obviously do care. You know what I mean? It's one of those, it's those fine lines of, you say you don't care, but you really do care, and the audience can see it and really picks up on it. And you talk about, your family and the things that you go through with that. And I love performing with you. You're a great person, and I'm so happy that you're, part of the show. So
yeah, thanks. I'm glad to be part of it.
Yeah, so let's get started then. Let's find a little bit about you. Find out a little bit about you. Who inspired you, or what actually inspired you to do stand-up comedy?
It's hard. I don't know. I've wanted to do stand-up comedy for a really long time. Probably since my early 20s. And I don't really know what inspired me. I do know that I was always funny at school, but part of that was just to kind of, hide behind my anxiety and nervousness, and, just high school sucked. So comedy definitely helped me get through that. But every time I'd go to a show, like my late 20s, into my 30s, even into my 40s, I just thought, I can do that. Like, that doesn't seem that difficult. I can do that. It's difficult, but I think that was it. I've always really enjoyed comedy. Steve Martin was the first comedy record that I got, and so I was a huge fan of his from the beginning. Whoopi Goldberg, way in the beginning, and I guess I just always liked comedy.
Nice. So was it Whoopi Goldberg, Steve Martin? Was there anybody else stand-up comedian-wise that you really you were kind of connected with? Or
I think those were the two kind of main ones early on. And then, as time went on, Ellen DeGeneres, in her early days in particular, was just hysterical. There's so many now, but I think early on, definitely Steve Martin was the top one, and Whoopi Goldberg, when she did her one-woman show, was just so talented.
So do you remember your first show? Like, what were the steps getting into your first show?
Well, let's see. Another fellow comedian, he has a ministry at our church, and he started doing some shows, and I was like, oh man, I want to be part of that, stand-up comedy ministry, even though I have no idea what I'm doing. But really, in all honesty, in my prayer time, God was like, nah, we're not gonna have you do that. I'm like, well, that's not fair, because that's what I want to do. And then it was, I don't know if it was a year or so, a couple of years. I'm not sure how far into it. And he did a show. Brandon Young did a show at the Comedy Palace. And after the show was over, I was like, man, that was awesome. Like, I want to do comedy. And he said, well, I'll put you on a show. And I'm like, what do you mean you'll put me on a show? To do what? I don't have any jokes, like structured jokes. And then that was in the conversation. Then he texted me. He was like, hey, I got this show. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, no, I do not. And then I agreed to host a show at our church. And Amy Barnes was the comedian. I believe Taylor Tomlinson. And so I was to host and then do like maybe 4-5 minutes, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. If you know comedy, like it takes a while to even develop a good 5 minutes of something.
Right.
But I went up there and just, did my thing and did my host thing, and that was it. And it was awesome. It was really great, but it didn't necessarily feel like I was doing comedy, because I was hosting. I was at a church. It didn't feel like I had done a show, but I guess that was probably my first show. And then I was asked to do a show at the Comedy Palace, and I was like, no, I'm not. That's a real show. I'm not going to do that. And just kept bugging. And finally I was like, all right, I'll do it. And I did just about 10 minutes or so on stage, and I did a great job. Part of that was because, 100 of the people in the audience were all people that knew me. So, but that was it. I was hooked after that.
Nice. What's the first time we met, actually? I think it was the first time I remember you specifically was we were judges at a clean comedy contest. That I remember, but I don't remember as far as a show. Do you remember when we first?
So I don't remember the first show that we were on together, but I had seen you do comedy out in the community already. Mm. So by the time we were, I think that when we were both judges on this panel, I believe that was the first time that we'd ever really actually met and had a conversation, but I knew of you prior to that. I'd seen you headline.
And now look at us, we do so many shows together, and that's one of the things I'm really excited about with the Uncommon Comedy Tour. What was your excitement for trying to get into with that when we were talking about that?
I think first of all, just the folks that are on it. I mean, that's exciting. You and I have done a lot of shows together. Yeah. For most of the people that know Brian and I, we are, we do a lot of shows together. We're very good comedy friends, and I actually call him my comedy husband. But I think that because I've learned a lot from you about comedy, and I watch the way you treat other people and how when you put on shows and, your professionalism, I just felt like this, I have trust in your ability, and you're funny, and that obviously is the most important. But I really like the uncommon piece to it, because you and I are, on paper, we're really not anything alike.
Right. And that's kind of the beauty of the whole tour is you look at all the people on it and you go, there's nothing in common. And thank you for those nice words that I paid you to say. So how long did it take for things to start to kind of click for you?
I think honestly it clicks differently at different times, if that makes sense, because, that first show that I did, I felt great. I was nervous just because I wasn't sure how I was going to kind of memorize the jokes, but I wasn't really as nervous as I thought. I felt very comfortable on that stage. And so it definitely at that point clicked that this is something that I was going to continue to do. And then I think there have been other times of my career. I just hit 5 years in April. And so I think I'm still waiting for some clicks. And then sometimes my clicks are unclicked. You do a show that's outside and then the electricity goes out and then nobody can hear you. And then, you walk away like, yeah, all right, I'm unclicking. This is not going to work for me. And then you have a great show and, you're like, this is what I should be doing. I should have started this when I was 12. So yeah, I mean, I think if that answers the question, I think that there's just lots of times where certain things click when you kind of
Mhm.
find your voice and what you're going to talk about, and then you're like, ah, this is good, this is good, and then then you start to, for me, just my persona on stage and my movement and my act outs, and you know, just figuring what that's going to look like, and then that starts to click. So I think there's more than one
Yeah.
for
Well,
me.
and it's interesting too because you progressed pretty quickly, but you don't do or you didn't do what a lot of comics do, which is the bar scene and a lot of the open mics. Like you just were able to somehow get yourself onto shows and just kept it.
Yeah, I did my first open mic about a year and a half after I had already done shows, and I'm just not an open micer. It's hard for me when you start your comedy career and you're on stage and you get laughs, and then you go to do stand up, or then you go to do open mics, and nobody's really paying attention, and nobody's really laughing. Also, I found that the dynamic were mostly men, quite a bit younger than me, and even women. And so a lot of the jokes that were being told on stage were just far different from what I do on stage. I work clean, and so I don't have any jokes about sex or my body parts or those kinds of things. And so you sit through 10 or 12 of those, and then you get up there and people are like, wait, who's this old lady on stage? It just didn't help me. It just
Yeah.
didn't help.
So, what is the best advice you received about comedy?
Best advice, man. I think
Or some of the good pieces of advice that you received?
um, I think
No one's ever helped you with comedy. You just did it all
no.
on
I mean,
your
I
own.
can't even think constantly after every single show I do, with my list, with their list of things that I should be doing differently. Who would that person be?
No
Hmm.
idea. No idea.
I don't know where you are on here, but I'm pointing to you. I think that there's been a few things actually. So to write, which I don't do enough of. I hear that a lot actually from other comedians. Um, but man, I don't know. There's just been so many. There's just been so many good things, right? Just how to treat folks at a venue, which for me that wasn't too far off because I'm a pretty polite person anyway. Um, so there are just kind of small things like, pay attention to the audience, watch some of the show, don't just sit in the green room, right? Watch some of the show so you understand what people are saying before you, what people are laughing at, what the crowd is like, the dynamics of the crowd. Those things are all important, to pay a little bit of attention to before a show. um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's just been so much, I think. I don't know. I'm
Okay.
not. I guess I'm not giving the best answer on that one.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So, what comedian? Now that you've been doing comedy for a while, sometimes people's perception of comedy changes. Now that you've been doing comedy a while, what comedians make you laugh? And they can be famous. They don't, or they can be, people that maybe people haven't heard of.
Um, Man, I feel like there's a handful. I mean, there's some certainly. Like you said, comedy is very different now when you do it. So I definitely look for the laughter, but I also look for the joke structure
Hmm.
as well. And so, um, I mean, I'm a real fan still of. I love Ellen DeGeneres. That's somebody that I really like. I'm not really too big. I like Kevin Hart. I think he's
Hmm.
very funny. I think probably my top right now is Dave Chappelle, and just what he's able to do now, with his platform and his stage is been really great. Um, but I really honestly, because I attend shows if I'm not on a show, there's a lot of local comics that I really, really love. and that I think are funny. You are a funny guy, and I've watched you from very early on, 5 years ago, on stage. In fact, one of your jokes that you don't do as much as I'd like, but it's still one of my favorites. The Pictionary joke is still
Oh, okay.
one of my favorites. And I've watched you create, funny things, but sometimes I have a certain joke from a comedian, and
Yeah.
probably my favorite. Zoltan is, that he's just incredibly talented.
Yeah, Zoltan Cassis. We just had him on this podcast last week.
Yeah, he's very funny. Trenton Davis, super funny guy. And of course, one of my mentors as well, Mark Christopher Lawrence, who's incredibly talented, just all around. His acting and he's singing and he's comedian. He's just, he's just a funny guy. So I think for me, it's more, I'll watch comedy. Joe Coy's new special on Netflix is really, really good. And so Michael Jr., super funny guy. Like, I think there's some like that I like, but I'm really kind of more of a local kind of comedian girl.
Gotcha. And by the way, if you're listening or watching, Mark Christopher Lawrence was the first episode of the Uncommon Comedy Podcast. You can check that out on YouTube at Uncommon Comedy Podcast. Yeah, and you're probably watching this on YouTube anyway. So this is weird. I feel like this is more of like a formal, like, gosh, we talk all the time. I feel like this is more of a formal interview with you, which is so weird, instead of just us going back and forth and being weird. So what is your writing process like?
So in my cell phone, I have a notes app, and I just, when something pops into my head, I type it in there right away. Sometimes it's just a premise. Sometimes there's more of a joke that's kind of created right away, and I just put it all in there. Sometimes I'll be telling a story to somebody, and it's really funny, and they'll say, "Ooh, you should put that. That's a great bit." You do that to me all the time. "Ooh, that's a great bit." So I do that. Well, I'll put that in there, and then I'll write it up. I took a comedy class from Tony Calabrese, who's local here in San Diego, and there's a formula, and I still use that formula in writing my jokes, just to help me kind of structure the setup so there's not tons of setup.
What is that formula?
It's just a grid, and there's lines, and so you just type out the joke until there's a break, and then you go to the next line, and then there's boxes on the left-hand side for punchline, setup, punchline, and tag. And so when I initially write the joke up, I type it all in that, and then see that I've got, a setup that's like 20 lines, and then a half a punchline and no tag, right? And then from there, then I kind of work on it. And then typically I call you. And then I have an idea for a joke, or we meet, and then I am very excited about my joke that I've just written, and then you say, "Yeah, that's not funny," and then we rework it. So that's kind of my process.
So collaboration is important.
I think collaboration is important for me. I think that there are other comics that I know that do not, and they just kind of write stuff on their own, maybe do some open mics or. But for me, I like to run stuff by another comic, and yeah, that works best for me.
Yeah, and it's good if you can find people who are willing to do it, that are like at a higher level, because then they can see things that maybe somebody, if this is for like open micers, if they're an open micer and you're by another open micer, doesn't mean they can't give you good advice. But you're generally, if someone is still as an open micer trying to figure out their voice and their career, and there's an established comedian that you can maybe pick their brain, like that's a really good tool as well. So yeah, so when you go on a stage and you do it, do you record yourself? I
record myself 9 times out of 10. and I'll do either the audio or I'll do a video. And then I will either watch or listen back. And that's an important process, important part of my writing process, because you don't know when you're going to get a tag. You don't know when something perhaps is going to happen in the audience and something else funny comes up, or you ad lib something else, and that completely changes the joke to the better. So it's always an audio, and then most of the time, if I can do a video, I will.
Yeah, it's a really important thing to do. So because that differentiates when you have a good show versus a bad show. It shows you maybe why something didn't work. Speaking of bad shows, here comes the question. What is your worst show ever?
So I fortunately have not had too many of those, but somebody called me and asked me, somebody who does like blue comedy. Great guy.
What is blue comedy?
Blue, like dirty. And he called me to be on a show. And typically, if I know somebody that typically works blue or doesn't work clean, then I'm assuming that somebody's asked them to put on a clean show. And so I said, yeah, where's the show going to be? And, remember that I'm clean. And he was like, yeah, of course. And it was kind of early on in my career. And so I said yes. And I get there. And we worked out a fee, and I get there, and there is no stage. There is a sound system. However, the sound system somehow breaks down 10 minutes before the show, and the DJ who set up the sound system got angry and took all of his stuff and left. So then we wound up doing the show on the top of some stairs in a bar with a mic that was kind of in and out. The two people before me were very not clean. And then I get up there. And nobody cared about me at all. I got a couple little, but that was it. And it was horrible. Like it was horrible.
How long did you have to do? How long of a set was it?
I only did about 10 minutes, but I think he wanted me to do 20. And after 10 minutes, I was like, yeah, that's my time. Like there was just no way I was going to do any more of that. And there were like 12 people. It was horrible. It's horrible.
It's always rough when the audience can't hear you. That's kind of a bad thing. So what is the weirdest place that you've ever performed? Or like weirdest type of show?
Gosh. So I think for me, like I haven't done anything too crazy. I did a show in an airport.
Mm-hmm.
We did that show together. That was
not good.
It was awesome. It was such. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was definitely. It's one of those shows where you do, and it. Like you've really got to dig deep. Like you really gotta. Like you gotta. There's not a crowd work. If you're not a crowd work person, man, you gotta learn that real quick. So that was a very interesting show. One that I would do it again, even though it was hard. I would definitely do it again. And then I did a show for about 25 people in a backyard with no mic, and it was somebody's 40th birthday. And they wanted me to roast the guy. And I'm like, I'm not going to roast somebody that I don't know. You could tell me a couple funny things about him. Well, the couple funny things that they told me about him, he didn't find them funny. So, yeah, that was awkward. He was like, wait, who are you? And why are you talking about that situation that happened in the second grade? I'm like, I don't know. They told me your wife. It's horrible.
I never understood why people hire comedians for like backyard private birthday parties or whatever, and then have it's because you end up in somebody's living room for like 8 people, and it's just always just really awkward.
But then I did a 60th birthday party for a woman in her backyard. But I can tell you this, she got herself a little sound system. She set it up very, very nicely, and that was a really fun show.
So yeah, I mean, having sound and lights and all of that
Yeah,
makes such
it
a
helped.
difference, but most people just wander around the party and just, make people laugh. Like, I'm not a up close magician, like I'm not gonna
Yeah.
go table to table and tell a
I
joke.
think some people are able to do that kind of stuff. Like I just did a show recently for a group of ladies, and they wanted me to kind of do some jokes that had to do with their organization. And
Right.
I said, yeah, I'm not that person. Like I can do a couple here or there. I did a breastfeeding, a big giant breastfeeding gala, and that's where my Lazy Susan joke came in because I had to kind of figure out a couple things. So I can do a little something, but I can't write a whole new set based on a specific organization yet. At some point, yes, but right now, I can't.
Well, that's why you always charge double, at least double when that happens. Like if you want custom material, you're going to pay for it because people don't realize how long it takes to write and develop and have jokes that are funny, especially on a particular topic.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like I said, I can do a couple things. I can talk nicely about the folks, and hey, thank you, teachers, you were great. I was
Right.
a great student, But as far as writing a whole like 20-minute set, yeah, it's taken me 5 years to write a 20-minute set.
Well, Ed, you also, to give you credit, you've also just recorded a dry bar comedy special, which should hopefully be coming out this year in 2020.
Yeah.
What was that process like?
What?
What was that process like, recording?
It was so great. First of all, the folks out there are just so nice, and that's a lot. That to me says a lot about a show, right? And so yeah, now they were just really, really nice, very professional from beginning to to me being there, and it was great. And then the show itself, I mean, it's a lot of pressure to be recorded. Like you be recording yourself, that's one thing, but you got somebody else that's recording you, and there's it was a lot of pressure. But again, everybody was really nice, and I think that helped. So yeah, it was great. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hearing that it may be December this year, so I'm hoping that happens.
And that'll be cool. And you'll let everybody know when that comes out. And you can, if you want to follow Lisa, you can follow her on Facebook at Lisa Gilbert Comedy. And that's also Instagram as well, Lisa Gilbert Comedy.
Yes.
And then your Twitter is Lisa G Comedy, correct?
Yeah. I don't do too much on Twitter. I'm trying to pick it up, but I've got several distractions here at the house.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Lisa is a mother of triplets, and you had them sort of later in life.
I did, 44 years old.
So, and they are now what, 8? Is that correct?
8.5.
8.5.
Yeah.
So it's been well, it's good because you've gotten so much material out of them. So it's wonderful. They're your writers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just go through the day. That's where your material comes from. You just go through the day and just record. So now you've been doing comedy, like I said, 5 years, and you're getting established now as like a one of the heads of like San Diego, and you're up there, and you're traveling internationally doing comedy. What are some of the things now that you see new comedians do that are mistakes? What are like some of the biggest mistakes you see?
I mean, not having any jokes.
Now you sound like me. Where's the punchline?
I've been around too long. Where's the punchline? Well, so yeah, I mean, I guess just not having any jokes. I think that there are some. Zoltan is a great example of that, where he's got this bit that he does about bed bugs, and it happened. Like a lot of stuff that obviously are jokes and things that we write about are things that have happened in our life to some degree. But to be able to just talk about your day on stage without any planning, then you're just up on stage talking about your day, and we can do that over drinks at happy hour. So I think that that's kind of what I see a lot, where you just kind of get up and just kind of talk with no real kind of beginning or end or structure to your joke. The other thing is I've met a lot of newer comics that have not ever been to a live comedy show, which is so weird to me. And they've watched a lot on Netflix, but there's a huge difference between watching something on Netflix and actually going to a live show. And so I would say that would be it. Just have some structure around your jokes and catch a live show or two.
So that would be your advice to comics?
Yeah, I always tell newer comics, if I have the chance, with my unsolicited advice, to always record yourself. Have some joke structure. Don't think of a joke in the car and then do it on stage. There are people that can do that, but most cannot. And will know. The audience will know when you've written that joke in your car. You don't have to say it, because then we're like, yeah, we knew. Yeah. And then go to a show. You can't join a bodybuilding contest and just walk on stage and start flexing your muscles. You've got to go to the gym. And that's what shows are, in my opinion, live shows are for me. That's my gym. That's where I get my workout. To watch how people move on stage and what they do and how the audience reacts and how they react to the audience, right? Like one of the things that you talked to me about is, kind of finding my voice on stage. And it takes some time to do that. But part of your voice is also your act outs and your movement. And when you first walk on stage, if I get too excited and I get on stage and I just start my stuff and I don't take a breath, man, I'm not going to have as good of a show as if I were to just take a minute, think, get myself on stage, how y'all doing? What's up? What's good? Get a little, see how everybody's feeling, who's laughing, right? I've already watched a little bit in the back to kind of see, is there a heckler, somebody talking too much, somebody making out in the corner that's going to distract me? Like, what's going on out there? And then when I just take my time and then all right, let me tell you a little bit about myself, it works.
Right. Better. Absolutely. Now, you started obviously a little later in life. I mean, you've been, like I said, you've been kind of funny your whole life. And so what was it kind of like starting out doing stand-up comedy? Were there reservations about starting out so late in life, or how did you feel about all of that?
To be honest, I'm just excited to be doing comedy. I mean, I don't know that I ever put much thought into, crap, I'm going to be 53 here in a couple of months, and man, I've only got 5 years in, and how am I going to establish myself? Am I going to be able to be full time? And but I can't really let that bog me down. I just have to keep going and keep pursuing. And to be honest, the shows I've done, bar shows, those don't work for me, right? And I think that's where comics start. You don't want to turn down a lot of stuff. You want to, try to get on there as best you can. And now I'm at a place where I have a little more say in the comedy that I do, and the opportunities that are coming to me certainly much differently now. A lot of word of mouth, which is great. People that have seen me on shows and then want to hire me for a show. And so I feel like it sounds kind of cliche and cheesy, but this is where I'm supposed to be at this stage in my life. And because I have young kids, I feel like a young 50, I mean, except for my knees and my hip and my feet and my left finger, but everything else feels young. Then I feel like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And because I've got 3 8-year-olds, I can connect to audiences, whether they're single and want kids, or married and have kids, or have grandkids, the same kids my age. Like I feel like this age is working for me well.
Nice. So you talk about that and having, 3 8-year-old triplets. You've recently gone full time with stand-up comedy. And how do you manage the work life, road life, comedy life balance? Because that's a real thing.
Yeah. So,
and especially when you were working full time.
Yeah.
Not doing comedy, I mean.
I still have a couple part-time gigs. I do a lot of training, and a little bit of speaking. So there's that. I mean, I still have to bring in some money until, you know, comedy does better, like all comics, in the beginning, right? But I think that I retired, and then the next day, the news said, "Oh, by the way, everybody's going to have to stay indoors." And my kids' school said, "Oh, you're not bringing your kids back to school for the rest of the school year." And my initial response was like, "Oh, no, I'm bringing my kids to school on Monday." Like, I don't care who's there. It's superintendent, doesn't matter to me. Janitor, homeless guy down the street. My kids are going to school at 8:15. I'll be picking them up at 2:40. So that, the retirement piece for me was to be able to have more time to travel, but at the same time, be home with my kids after school, have that time with them. So then if I had a show in the evening, then I had some time with my kids each day. And so that's still my plan. I will tell you though, Brian, that being a second grade school teacher now, well, school's out, but now I'm a second grade summer school teacher because my kids need summer school, and doing some part-time stuff, still needing to bring in some salary. I feel like I'm just as busy as I was working full-time. For those of you that are out there that are doing comedy or have a nighttime gig, right? I got to find a sitter. There's no way I could be doing this podcast now without my husband here to keep the kids out of my room. Like, there's still those struggles for me that I'm still trying to work out, to be quite honest.
Right. Not to mention writing, where do you find time to write? Where do you find time to reach out and book gigs? Where do you find time to do that? Networking at shows is so important. You have to be there at a certain time. So it's not like you just come in, pop in, and leave. There's a little bit more to it. So that's something you have to kind of juggle. And I think you've done a really pretty good job of doing that so far. So
yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah. One of the things I learned is that bookers and people that run a show don't care. They don't care about the fact that you've got to make sure that your triplets are asleep, because the sitter's going to come and they're not the greatest. I don't know. I mean, that piece is I learned that by listening and paying attention in the green room, by listening to bookers, right? You do a lot of booking, so listening to you and what that's like to book a show, and realizing that it's not personal, that people don't necessarily care that you've got these other issues, because the show's got to go. The show's got to go on. And so it matters that you get there on time, you're ready to be on stage and do what the job is that you've been paid to do.
Yeah, and that's a really true that's a really big thing for someone who does produce shows, just that professionalism. I'm going to ask you about the funny audience stories in a second, but once again, talking with Lisa Gilbert here. You can follow her on Facebook and Instagram. She is a comedian from San Diego, performs all over. You can follow her on Facebook and Instagram at Lisa Gilbert Comedy. You can follow her on Twitter at Lisa G Comedy, and she does have a Dry Bar special coming out later on this year, December, sounds like, of 2020. So keep on the lookout for her. So do you have any funny audience stories that either happened to you or while you were, watching a show?
Well, I have seen many comics deal with hecklers beautifully. I love to watch that. I love to watch a comic handle a drunk person in the audience with grace, not cussing them out and degrading them, but just really handling them with grace and keeping the show going. That's something that I do like to see. Doesn't happen often, but I think for me, so I'm biracial, right? Half black and half white. And I grew up with a white mom and mostly a white family. And so I've had to kind of learn about my Black side, my African American heritage, and just who I am and how I'm perceived, and which is funny because I'm married to a Black man. It's my second one. I'm not married to them both at the same time. That would be a lot of work. But so when I do a show for an all Black audience, I get nervous. I'll just put that out there. It is the most. Brian's laughing because you know how I get.
Mm-hmm.
And I get.
I'm more comfortable in front of an all Black audience than you are.
Yeah. I'm getting so much better. I mean, I'm so much better, and it's my favorite shows. But it's also I'm just super anxious, and I'm part of why I'm super anxious is because I have a Black joke, and I'm never sure how it's going to be received. So I'm on stage. It's a Baptist church, and it's mostly Black women, sprinkle of Black dudes in there, right? And I'm on the show, you're on the show, Mark Christopher Lawrence, and I turn to Mark Christopher Lawrence and I'm like, dude, I'm not doing the Black joke. And he's like, yes, you are doing the Black joke. And I'm like, no, you know how I am. I'm not doing the Black joke. I'm gonna get punched in the face. I'm not doing the Black joke. So I did the joke. And I get up there and I'm like, so I'm biracial, half Black, half white. And a lady in the audience is like, girl, we know. And I was like, all right, I see now. That's how we're going to do it. And she wasn't rude about it. I wasn't, I didn't feel attacked or anything, but I'm like, okay. So I go on with my joke. And there's a part where I say, but I grew up in a white home, so I swim. And half the audience laughs. And a couple of the audience members are like, what? That's what? And I'm like, oh, okay. I see now you want to be offended. I know. We see you, Happy. We see you. And the audience just, it was probably the longest pause break I got for laughter. Like it was just they just loved it. So that was one of my favorites. I do a little singing. So I definitely have had a couple of times where I'd have a drunk man in the audience. It's like, hey baby, you singing to me? And I'm like, no, I'm not. But thank you for the compliment. So I've gotten a couple of those.
That's funny. We're gonna switch gears and talk a little bit about something that's near and dear to your heart. An organization that you did you found? Were you one of the founders of this?
Yes.
Okay. Would you tell us a little bit about this organization that you were the founder of?
Yeah. So I have a ministry. That's somebody.
Yeah, as the door cracks open.
Right, here we go. See. Hey, can you close the door there, buddy? I appreciate it. Thank you. That's how I juggle, people. That's how I juggle. I'll choke them out later. So anyway, I actually am way in the back. I have to always give credit to Snow Thornton because she does all the front work for this now. But I think it's been, 15, 16 years or so, when I realized that I had attend a large church, the Rock Church, and I also am a social worker of a large organization, which is the County of San Diego. And there was a way for me to put these two together. And so I founded Step Up, the foster youth mentor ministry at the Rock Church, and we recruit mentors for the County of San Diego who has a mentor program. And so basically what we do is we interview and talk to and do orientations for folks that are interested in mentoring. And then we send them to the County of San Diego to finish the background process, and then the matching of foster youth from 6 years old to 18. We also are working with Voices for Children in recruiting CASAs, which are court-appointed special advocates. A lot of those CASAs hold educational rights for kids that may have special needs in schools that need somebody to advocate for them.
So where can they find out more information about that? And that is
well, there's the website, and so you can always go.
Yeah, this is a long one. www.sdrock.com/ministry/foster youth mentor/note from Lisa.
Yeah, the note from Lisa is just the very front page, so you don't necessarily need that. But if you go to sdrock.com and then just click under Outreach Ministries, you'll find it there under foster youth mentoring. And then you just email. You can always message me as well on Facebook or Instagram. You can email me at lisagilbertcomedy@gmail.com, and I can kind of guide you in the right direction. For those of you out there that are like, I'm not trying to join no ministry, that's okay. You can still be a mentor. We are just a ministry where we build up people in the ministry that attend the church. You don't have to attend the church to join the ministry. It just gives you extra support. You don't have to be part of the Rock Church in order to be a mentor with the County of San Diego either. So there's always different ways for you to mentor a youth if that's what you're interested in doing.
So there are organizations, if somebody's in, Colorado or Massachusetts or whatever, that they can, and listening to this, and what they can kind of reach out to their certain areas and see if there's some sort of foster youth organizations. Do you know of any national ones that they might look into as well?
Well, the County of San Diego has their own mentor program.
Okay.
And then there's also Big Brother, Big Sister. I don't know how well they work with foster youth, because foster youth, one of the things about Step Up is that it's really kind of showing kids, God's staying power, and that regardless of what you do or where you're at in your life, God isn't going to leave you. And so for us, for the mentors that we recruit through Step Up, what we tell them is that, kids are going to move. We're gonna match you with somebody that lives in an area that's close to you, and that's going to be real convenient until something happens and that kid has to move, and then now they're 40 minutes from you. And are you going to stick with them?
Right.
Because when a foster youth changes placement or is removed from their home, they lose everything. They lose community and school and friends, the 7-Eleven where they get their hot fries, like they lose it all. So our hope is really that the mentor sticks with them during those difficult transitions.
Right. Now, we've done a few shows for Step Up. And just one last thing for it is, why is this so important? Why is fostering, why is this such an important program? You were in social work, you said, for 25 years in San Diego. Why is this so important? What impact does this have on the children?
Well, the trauma of being removed from your home, regardless of how abusive it was, is difficult. And like I said, everything changes for that kid, right? Sometimes you don't even get your cell phone. I mean, you're removed from your home as a teenager. You've lost everything. And so being a mentor to a child is research-based, right? It improves hygiene. It improves their grades in school. It improves mood. Like there's just so much that the research shows that changes outcomes for kids when they understand that there's one person in their life that loves them and cares for them.
That's awesome. So once again, you can reach out. It's sdrock.com/ministries/foster youth mentor, and then you can do / note from Lisa if you choose.
And if you I just say one more thing, if you are
absolutely.
a church and if you're in San Diego or California or in another state and you're interested in starting a ministry like this, then contact me. Let me know.
And where will they contact you again?
You can contact me at lisagilbertcomedy@gmail.com. You can also find me on Facebook or on Instagram and send me a message there, or you can go to sdrock.com and contact me through the ministry there.
Okay. And worst case scenario too is if they can't find you, they can also contact me and I can put them in you in touch with them. So and Lisa, I want to say thank you so much for coming on today. It's about time we got you on here, and let's do some stuff soon once this all gets unsorted and we can get back to being humans again. And I want to thank Lisa, and I'd like to thank JD, our producer, for helping us out today. And I'd like to just say thank you to everybody for tuning in and watching. Again, please feel free to follow us on Apple, Google, Spotify, We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook and YouTube. You can find us at Uncommon Comedy on Facebook, Instagram at Uncommon Comedy Tour, and on YouTube at Uncommon Comedy Podcast. I want to thank everybody again, and thank you, Lisa, so much for taking your time and sharing your
Can I say
knowledge.
one more thing?
Sure.
Besides, thank you very much, Brian.
Of course.
If you are an organization, a church, we've got a great lineup. The stage will be coming back, so definitely keep us in mind. We've done marriage ministries, we've done marriage events, we've done singles events, we've done appreciation events, and where we've done some comedy for staff. Fundraisers are, I think, kind of our specialty. We do a lot of fundraisers. So definitely hit us up, because we bring a great show. The great thing about Uncommon Comedy is that you can bring your kids to it. So if you want a date night, great. If your babysitter all of a sudden can't come, my kids can sit right in the front seat of our shows, which is a beautiful thing.
And then they yell out your punchlines, which is always
They do
fun.
yell out my punchline. Oh my gosh.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for tuning
Thank you
in.
for having
And
me.
thank you, Lisa. And we'll talk to you soon.